Welcome to the first cast of Season 4, properly Season 4, not preseason, for the Coach-Pupil League for Starcraft Brood War. If you don't know what this is a league meant to help teach people the game, get people improved, and just a fun way to organize something for everyone to come and play and enjoy this fantastic game. Not super serious like BSL or anything crazy like that, and it's open to all skill levels. We're going to see some low level play and some high level play. It's going to be fantastic. I'm Saetzero, also Justin. Hopefully in the future I'll have some commentators with me, but right now it's going to be a solo cast, and we're going to start getting through week 1 of the CPL 4. Right now we are going to be doing Goon Squad versus the Salt Mines. The week 1 matches, we're going to be doing Tier 2, and Tier 3. I have no interest in casting Tier 1. They know what they're doing. Those games are going to go to plan and be proper learning experiences. I want to see garbage. I want to see crazy fights. So I'm going to be sticking to the low level stuff. That's what I'm about. So we're going to get started in. I got some games. Now we're going to take a little PSA real quick before we start the cast. You see, I got this Goon Squad vs Salt Mines week 1. It's right here. Let's look at the Tier 3 folder. That's all I got. I got 1 match from Tier 3. If I look at my Tier 2 folder, I got 3 matches of the 4. Upload your replays, people. Come on. Like, we want to cast your games. We want to make this a fun experience for everyone. We want everyone to enjoy what's going on. But if you don't give us the replays, we can't do anything with them. So upload the replays. But we're doing this match. We're going to do some Tier 2 and some Tier 3. We're going to start with Tier 3, which we got 1 match, but I'm hoping it's going to be fantastic, between Ramen Tooth and Insomniac. So let's go into game 1. Alright. As far as game 1 goes, we got Ramen Tooth in the top left playing Protoss in the beige tan, I don't know what color that is. We got Insomniac playing Zerg in the bottom left. I know we do see a bit of Insomniac talking in the Discord pretty actively, so hopefully this game goes well for them. I'm excited to see. Don't know much about Ramen Tooth. I don't know much about either of these players, but this is a pretty basic matchup. The openings seem to be pretty standard stuff. If you want to, for Protoss, it's usually going to be some kind of fast expand opening, either going with a Forge if you want to be safer and a little more cautious, or a Gateway if you want to be doing that instead. Now, as far as either player, no one's made any big decisions yet. No early pool from Insomniac, it looks like, yet. And we see Ramen Tooth setting up for that early wall for the expansion, like what I was talking about. We'll have to see what building they build to start the wall, either a Forge or a Gateway. But I'm gonna guess Forge because it's a lot simpler, a lot easier to execute. As far as Insomniac, we are still waiting to see what they're going to be doing. Got a lot of money building up, and it does look like it is going to be a spawning pool, but after the Overlord, so Overpool. Very standard opening in this matchup. Hopefully Ramen Tooth gets to scout this in time. One of the big things about this matchup, Protoss versus Zerg, is you want to get that beat on what Zerg is doing in the opening, because you want to be as greedy as possible without losing the game. And since Ramen Tooth has not found Sonic yet, you see that early Forge going down, and we're going to see if he wants to get a couple cannons or go straight for the Nexus first. Going for Nexus right after the Forge is pretty reasonable, as long as the opponent does anything crazy, but when you see how Ramen Tooth scouting has not seen what the Zerg wants to do yet, you just don't know. You're kind of taking a gamble for a very little reason. Now we see from Insomniac the spawning pool did just finish, and no Zerglings in production yet. Just getting that hatchery at the expansion, and only a little bit of Zerglings being made, which Ramen Tooth goes straight for the Nexus, no cannons, is going to be feeling it like they're in a very good spot given the situation. I'd say one of the things you want to be looking at as a Protoss player here is how many Zerglings got made here. He sees just the 2, not 4 or 6 or anything like that, and a little bit of a later gas from the Zerg. So it should give him some indication of that he can be a little bit greedier. The Zerg's not trying any kind of crazy aggressive play right off the bat. Now we see this drone coming out from Sonic to start scouting around. Looks like just want to see the situation going on here. Not sure where it's going, but we'll find out later. As far as Protoss, we got that gateway being built to reinforce that wall. You do have to build a decent amount of buildings. And Insomnia taking that third base up on the left side. Not sure if that's where I would take your third base, as Zerg pushing towards the Protoss area might be a little dangerous in the mid game when Zealots start getting active with speed and some weapons upgrades, but we'll have to see how this ends up going on. Both players being reasonably safe right now. We don't see too much in production, don't see any Zealots being started yet or anything, so Ramtooth really being a little greedy to get all the tech and production up rather than worrying about any kind of attack, which if you look at what Insomniac is doing, that seems like a pretty reasonable play. We got a lair coming up with no Hydra Den, and we see the gas being mined from Sonic. Only 2 in the gas though, and not a gas taken at the natural. Not really sure what they're up to, but maybe that'll be a little more obvious later. Feels like they're going to be doing some kind of mutive play. They would take an extra gas by now. Just seems like they're a little drone light in general, so I'm curious to see what's going to happen. You see Sonic getting that Zergling speed, a key upgrade for the mid game that you want to have your Zerglings being as effective as possible and threatening backdoors as much as you can. Ramtooth going for some very stable play, getting at Stargate in this matchup, which makes so much sense. You get the scout stuff, and then after you scout everything you need, you go overlord hunting. Very fun to do. Which, I mean, like this matchup from the pro side, it can feel a little boring a little bit sometimes, where you're sitting back, you're defending, you're not doing anything. Corsairs give you that ability to be aggressive. Now we see Ramtooth pushing out these couple Zealots. Makes sense to see if he wants to force the Zerg into forcing, like making more units than they're really looking to do. We do see Insomniac getting that Spire up right now, but as far as the gas, like I don't know what's going on here, but it looks fun. We see up. I don't know. It looks like that drone's on patrol. But we don't see any additional gas at the natural or anything, so if this Sonic's going for some kind of muta play, he's just not going to be able to produce that many of them. I'm not really sure what the plan is, but it seems a little unoptimized, but we're talking tier 3. Everyone at that level is looking to improve. There's no judgment here about making any kind of small mistakes like that. This is why this league's so great, though. You post these replays, and then your opponent is going to have a good time, you're going to have a good time, and your coaches can help you improve as a player moving forward. See Ramtooth going to kill this Overlord right away. Instead of scouting what the Zerg's doing, you usually want to take that Corsair and scout as fast as possible, get some kind of idea of what to expect from the Zerg player. And you see that the Pros player upgrading ground weapons and air weapons and getting their Zealot legs, being very mid-game focused, getting a bunch of upgrades going so they have a strong army later on. As far as Insomniac, we see more hatcheries getting built, going into this 5 hatchery style, it looks like, which seems good, but considering we got this Spire that's not doing much, we don't see a Hydra Den yet, I'm a little concerned about Insomniac's plan moving forward. Seems like they're getting some of the broad strokes but missing some key pieces. That's for an actual plan moving into the mid-game. We see Ramtooth going into that Templar Archives, going to be going into that maybe a Zealot Archon kind of push or something like that once they get all the upgrades complete, which could be very powerful if Insomniac does not see this coming. And Insomniac is starting that Hydra Den. Looks like they will be getting a bunch of Hydras moving forward. Seems like a good play given the lack of gas that they have right now. You can't really be afford to go into anything else. But you can see right now, these Zealots moving to attack, Sonic just has no defense to really do anything about it. Has Zerglings right here, but did not see the Zealot move out. Looks like it was just out of vision a little bit to the north side here. Zealot pushing into his third base, still no reaction from Insomniac. Looks like he's just going to sacrifice that base and save the units. This might be a situation for the Zerg. He can try to pressure with a counterattack with the Zerglings into the natural run by. There's still not a lot of defense here, nothing to block their run by. Or just preparing to hold on to the 2 main bases and accepting the loss here, getting ready for whatever mid-game he's planning to do. See round 2 getting that Psionic Storm, which will help him against a Hydra mid-game, which it looks like it's how he wants to be aiming to do, but given how this game is already looking, Sonic's just going to be in a lot of trouble. Seems like they're behind in a lot of ways, and the Protoss already has that +1 upgrade, but I don't see any armor on the way, so just trying to use Spadelings for defense is just not going to do the job. We're seeing these Hydras coming up to deflect these Corsair harassment a little bit, but they're still just not enough. It feels like you'd be very aggressive right now with Corsairs. Force Insomniac to make some Scourge to actually drive you back, but until then, just keep pressuring into this. You can see the Insomniac's supply is just plummeting right now. Very difficult to actually get things done. It just seems like Protoss is instilling their will on the map with a much clearer game plan moving into the sides. You see you got a couple Templars getting their energy up, getting ready for that mid-game push. And we got these Zealots that still have not been cleared out of this main base. Going back into 2 base versus 2 base Protoss for Zerg never feels good for Zerg, but especially with Insomniac's supply right now, just going to be very difficult to get anything done. One of the things you can see though about this level of play is that both players floating a lot of money, both minerals and gas, maybe not being as optimized as they could be. Stuff to improve on for the future that could dictate how this game might go better, because I mean, if you have $1,000 extra worth of Hydra lists, like these attacks would look a lot different. So regardless of the plan early on, this is a good reminder that at the very base level of the game, you need to just have decent macro and be able to spend your money. Build enough workers to get the money, then spend the money moving forward. See Protoss getting a 3rd base up. Insomniac being very aware that Protoss can have the easy wins occasionally against Zerg, but you can see how that game was going early, just not getting a lot of drones, not being aware of the Protoss move outs. That's less of a Zerg problem and just a little bit more of an awareness that Insomniac can work on for the future in his games. I do love what I'm seeing though from Protoss. So securing that 3rd base with this single ramp here and getting some cannons up, he knows he did good damage to Insomniac to that 3rd base. Doesn't need to go for a killing blow now, just get yourself in a good position for it later. I see Insomniac going into a bunch of upgrades to make their units better. We got missile attack, we got flyer carapace, we got these faster overlords, which all this stuff makes sense, but it seems very reaction compared to what happened earlier in the game. It's just in general, you just see Insomniac's economy is not going to be able to hold up. Like, you got a decent amount of Hydra lists here, but we got this big army and a sneaky little Dark Templar right here to force the overlords to be hanging around. With no overlords, that Dark Templar is just going to slowly kill everything as necessary. Now we see Insomniac right here is taking a 3rd base, but with no map control at all. He's never going to be able to hold it as long as he's hoping it just never gets scouted is kind of the thing he's going for. Got this little pack of Hydralisk here, not really doing much. And Insomniac not afraid to say what kind of player he is, that he knows that game was not as close as he would like, and not afraid to say anything about it. But both players looked like they had plenty of things to improve upon. You see that there was, like, Insomniac had a decent idea of what to do. Just needs to be a little more focused on the economy moving forward. Protoss has a much simpler game plan in these games early on, at least, where it's just get some money, get your zealots, get some upgrades, and then move on from there. But we'll see if game 2 looks a little closer. So we're going to move into game 2, Ramatooth versus Insomniac. Now, in this one we got Insomniac in the top right with that blue Zerg. We got Ramatooth with the teal Protoss in the bottom left, and I still don't know these maps super well. This is that 2-player map, I believe. It's Cross Game is the name. Some of these newer maps that weren't in the game before, I'm just not super familiar with. So I'm excited to see how this one plans out. But you got a 2-player map, and this matchup can definitely be a little dangerous on both players if they're a little neglectful on their scouting. Because when you know where your opponent's going to spawn, 9 pool becomes a little scarier, a little more of an option for Zerg, or like any kind of like 3-hatch, Hydra all-in, anything like that, where you don't have to worry about, well, where are they spawning, doesn't matter. And as far as Protoss, you could do anything like a proxy gateways. You can know you're going to get the scout early, so you can be greedier with the expansion. You want to do anything. Speaking of proxy gateways, it looks like Ramatooth maybe playing a little metagame here, seeing Insomniac was not happy with the other game and pretty vocal about it. So, like, what better way to make a Zerg hate their life than they already don't like the matchup? Just throw some proxy zealots in their face too. Just we're here for the victory, not here for improvement, not here for nothing. We're going for the win here. Now we got the spawning pool just starting after the overload, so we got another overpool from Insomniac. Still a safe build, but you do have to be scouting and seeing what the Protoss is doing and react appropriately. Now, without a drone scout, Insomniac's going to have no idea this proxy's coming. We got a 2-gate. This is a very committed kind of proxy aggressive play. I'm going to be nice and call it aggressive. This is cheesy. This is so cheesy, but I love it. It makes sense to me. So we're going to have to see how Insomniac reacts. Not going to see anything about this for a while. They do see the drone starting to move out, but that looks like it's more for a hatchery than anything else. So if this probe can delay this hatchery at all, the further he can stop extra larva production, the better this proxy is going to do. So, because he's going to have to do damage if the Zerg does get that hatchery up and gets the expansion going. This is very committed early game play. Now you see the probe is walking away. Didn't put a pylon down or anything like that, but just keeping the probe alive, it does do substantial damage with these kind of early rushes combined with the zealot to kill units in 1 fewer hits. So, and these kind of, like, you would rather keep the probe alive here for this little extra bonus here, because you got the 2 hits from the zealot and 1 from the probe rather than forcing 3 from the zealot. But we do see Ramen not going straight into the main, and Insomniac not thrilled about what he sees. Love it. Love this to death. That you, like, if you see it, like, you don't have to talk to your opponents when you're playing these games. Talk after the games, but if you're going to show them you're getting frustrated, just go for it. Do some cheesy stuff like this. And you see that it cancels the hatchery. Insomniac going to have 1 base larva economy, which is more important than anything else here. You see there's so much money piling up, but no way to spend it. He's going to get going to Sunkens, but like, even with these proxied gateways and not much in the base, this is going to be very difficult for Insomniac to hold. He should have started Sunkens earlier, if anything, but when you got stuff like this, you maybe scout around for proxies a little bit, or just, you know, be a little less communicating about if you're feeling a little frustrated. So we got the in-base second hatch from Insomniac, staying in the game, trying his best, or not. Like, it's okay. This is a rough spot to be in, and I fully understand it. That's definitely a brutal kind of way to go out on a series, but we're playing best of 3s here. It's not about we're gonna play 10 games of practice and they're all gonna be good macro games. Let's learn. Like, this is a league to win games, so people doing moves like this, you gotta expect it and you gotta be ready for it. Cheesing gets you a win just as well as a macro game, and you can say it's not a real game, there's no honor behind it or anything like that, but if you lost to it, well, you gave them the ladder points, so it doesn't really matter. And again, we're going to be throwing that PSA, upload replays. People, if you're playing in this league, make sure the replays get uploaded so we can cast the replays, because you can see I should have another tier 3 game to play, but I don't, because you didn't upload it. But that's okay. We got a nice pile of tier 2 games. These are going to be exciting, and I can't wait to see it. Tier 2 games have that nice balance of people being beyond that first step and what they are trying to do with the game, and then into that next step of, well, they look like we're doing, but there's clearly things to work on. Alright, so we're going to game 1 for Snail 6. He's the green Protoss in the top left. We got Go Metas in the white Protoss in the bottom right. PvP. I love this matchup. Tier 3 had a dropout. That's unfortunate. It happens though, especially early in the season, but it happens occasionally. Just we're also missing a tier 2 game, so I'm just gonna throw out these little PSAs if I don't see full groups. But dropouts happen, like real life happens. That's always a good thing to think about. Real life way more important than video games. If you got stuff you gotta take care of your stuff. Alright, so we got both players, no one doing any kind of proxy, any crazy stuff. Now PvP, this is a matchup a lot of Protoss players don't like. They don't feel it's very skill intensive, or there's a little luck to it, or some coin flippy kind of stuff. And I would say that's true. There's definitely some things you can attribute a little more to luck, or taking a gamble is probably a better way of saying it. That one of the big things you have to keep in mind is DTs exist and they're very strong. So it's either you get your detection and be safe against the DTs, or you hope they don't go DTs and skip the detection, which gives you a better army if they didn't. So there's a little RPS there to decide if you want to get detection, but after that, it's still a core normal units and nothing crazy. Now, if you want to talk about crazy, you see Gometas, it looks like he's going for Nexus first, which I've played against Nexus first in PvP, and if you don't scout it and know how to react to it fast, it can get out of hand pretty quickly. But definitely a risky move to do. It would die to proxies pretty quickly, and I would say it would be bad against stuff like Dark Templar, but usually these kind of early expand plays forfeit a little bit of their tech to get a stronger economy, and they might go Forge to get some cannons to protect against that kind of stuff. So we gotta see how Snail wants to react to this. If he wants to follow up with the expansion and just accept there's a small loss here, or keep teching through the path and try to play off a tech advantage, which would probably be Reavers with drops. Because if you need to go into stuff like cannons to defend the front against our Templars, it's static defense that can't move, so you can pick them apart with Reavers pretty quickly. Now we see Snail is in Gomez's best and still has not scouted a gas. Much more signaling kind of thing I'm talking about. Big heavy zealot kind of defense. Maybe Forges if you think he needs detection, but if you don't get the gas, you can't make Dragoons, you can't tech up. So Gomez is just going for, I'm spending raw numbers of stuff, even if it's not the best kind for this matchup. Now we see Snail, he just finished with the Cyber Core, still only has one gateway, but getting a lot of gas, so it looks like he will be going for some kind of tech build. We'll have to see what they want to go for. Starting that Dragoon range, so important for the matchup to get stuff like that. And we see Gometas just pumping out Zealots, still no gas, still no Cyber Core, no interest in any of that kind of stuff. Just going to use Zealots to make sure that Snail can't march in with the ground army to defend this. If Snail doesn't have a good plan moving forward, Gomez is definitely going to be in a good spot here. So definitely a little bit of a riskier play, but given we're on a 4-player map, I love the call that you would want to go for a Nexus first if you think you can pull it off. Something to consider on this kind of map, this is Gladiator, it has these downward ramps, so if you do get contained by Dragoons, it's hard to push up the ramp, especially once you get Reavers. They fire slow, and if you have that miss chance, it could definitely be a problem. So usually like some kind of aggressive gateway play makes a little more sense to me than doing something like what Snail's doing. So I'm surprised Gomez did go for Nexus, but took the risk and it's paying off very nicely. Still has not gone into Gate, but you do see the Forge in production. It looks like he will be getting those cannons, making sure he doesn't die to anything cheeky like a Dark Templar Rush, which I believe hits somewhere in the next minute or so, like 5:30, somewhere around there. So you see that they have some ideas of threats that this build could face and are prepared for it very well. Although with so much money from Gomez, it does look like they should have had gas by now. They should have been starting that Cybernetics core. Like, you don't need this much money for what you're doing here. If you had any kind of scout into Snail's base, you can tell that they don't have any way to really pressure this. So 3 cannons here is a little overly safe, and you're delaying your tech so much. I'm not sure if this was super necessary to be this cautious. Maybe throwing out a Zealot or 2, you can probably get to Snail's base and get a better read of what's happening. Now we see though that Gomez is starting to get that gas and moving into that normal game. Just a little delayed on tech. Snail eating the loss and going for the expansion of the match, but I'm still hoping to see some kind of use for this gas. There's so much built up, but he's not making any real use of it. This should be some kind of tech play, because that's going to be the advantage you have here. Like, you're definitely behind on economy, and you saw your opponent had 2 gates as well as you, so it's not like you're ahead on production either. So you got to make use of the things you have. If you're not ahead on this economy, make use of the tech. See if you can climb back in through harass, which, like I was saying, that's why I was expecting a Reaver and a drop play. And that we just see now the robotics starting, but it feels so late compared to what it is. Gomez's spot seems so much more stable. You see the Cybernetics Core just finishing for Gomez here, and immediately starts that Dragoon range, going into that normal mid-game we're all expecting from this, which is just a ton of Dragoons, Zealots with speed, Templar later, or maybe Reavers, depending on how fast you want to scout through. And you see Snails moving up here with that probe, looking to go maybe for a... thinking Gomez is just going to be extra defensive and not actually push out here, so... Different plan than what I was expecting, to take that 3rd base from Snails and just say, go metas, you got these cannons, you feel defensive, well, I'm going to make some abuse of that and take another base that I actually can't defend right now. Now we see from Gomez, he has that forge, and so he's starting to get that ground weapons, which it doesn't seem super critical, but with you, if you look at Dragoons, there's 180 health in Dragoons, and each one does 20 damage. So he does eliminate 1 Dragoon hit if you can get a weapons upgrade, so the shield regeneration doesn't mess with it. But it's still not a very critical thing to go for these weapon upgrades, but it's a nice work of something that he already has in the build. Now you see Snail, he's getting those observers before working towards anything like any Reavers or anything like that, which makes sense. That's something you could definitely do with these builds. If you get in Forge and Zealot, you're not spending a lot of gas. You could early tech into Dark Templar as well to force your opponent to go into observers in case they try to do like fast Reavers or anything. And we see Gomez moving out with a very strong force. There's so many Zealots here that are going to be very difficult for Dragoons to take care of. Keeping in mind that Dragoons don't do full damage to Zealots, consider they are a small unit and they do these explosive damage. So there's again, Zealots typically not used in this matchup, but are very annoying if you have to deal with them. And you just see Gomez marching right across the map. Makes so much sense to clear out his base from any kind of pressure. And even still, Snail just does not really have the army to deal with this. He should be posturing a little more aggressively on these high grounds here, not letting Gomez just march up it for free. That high ground advantage could definitely help slow down these kind of push, but if you're just going to concede it immediately, you gotta just hope you have enough units to do it, which in this spot here you see so many Zealots just walking right up to Dragoons. It's gonna be difficult for them to get anything like this done. Now, like you see the Dragoons at the front not really staying with it. Snail kind of splitting up his army, not the best way, and there's some probes not doing it either. You pull them for defense or just let them keep mining. But I think just Gomez's build just is a little unorthodox, but definitely made a lot of sense. And Gomez forcing Snail down the ramp, which, like I was saying, going up the high ground ramp, Dragoon versus Dragoon, is very, very difficult. With that extra miss chance, usually going up it, especially if he throws those Zealots up at the front of the ramp. Now you see Gomez kind of splitting his attention, just going to put some harassment on this Nexus, but you see that it's not going to be killed anytime soon, so I feel like that's the kind of thing, either you commit to killing the Nexus, or you commit to controlling the ramp, or anything like that. And Gomez has rally points for these Dragoons going across. He's got 2 here and 2 on the way. So you see him kind of keep pressuring into this thing. Looks like Gomez has no idea about this 3rd base at all. No, and to be fair, no real reason to suspect it's happening. So if Snails can hold on, he might be still in a decent position. And you see there is a pretty good account of Dragoons coming up from Snails. He's going into this 4 gateway economy, which is around what he can support. Gomez is floating a lot of money that he probably could be doing something else with. He's moving into a good amount of gateways into this mid game though, and getting into these zealot legs. So Gomez is going to have a very strong mid game army. He's about to finish his Templar Archives as well. It was interesting to see both players skipping Reavers entirely in this kind of matchup, but I still think Snail probably should have went Reavers earlier on in the game. And you see Snail starting to repel back Gomez's army, but still not in the greatest of positions, so we got to see what these players want to do moving forward a little bit further. We see Snail, he's getting this base online. Can't really proxy any workers to it or anything, but like he's already starting to build up a pretty decent amount, and he's got his own forge there to defend it with cannons, which that's all you really need to defend against this until drops. There's still plenty of room for a Reaver to get in here and really do some big damage, especially back in this area here. You go over the ridge and then into this area. But you do see Snails looks like he's building up a nice big army. Going to try to move out later, but neither player really trying to step onto the map before they're ready. Still like Gomez, he's building up a nice strong army, but you see on the supply box still floating a lot of money. He needs to either be thinking more production or moving into taking that third base himself. I still don't think he has any idea about the third base for Snails. So yeah, still no scouting at all. And actually, I'm not even sure. I haven't seen any observers from Gomez to really see what's going on, even though he does have the capability to make them. He's moving into a shuttle, which will be good for harassment, to throw some zealots in the main or something like that. We'll have to see what he wants to do. You do see Gomez taking that third base, but it's at a mineral only, no gas. Although he does have plenty of gas to work with, so that's not really the end of the world. Now, both players kind of in a difficult spot here. You see Snails with a very superior amount of Dragoons, but anytime you have to push up these high ground pods, if you have a good position, your opponent wants to push up, and it can be very difficult. Mischance, it will turn around fights that you should not be winning at all. But I definitely like what Snails is doing, just getting into this mid game, very normal kind of stuff. Gomez is getting his Psionic Storm. Snails also, but much further behind, so it looks like there's going to be a window for Gomez to win a big ground fight as long as he has some Templar out on the field. And you see Snails, looks like they're getting another forge going to these double upgrades. Not really sure if that's super worth it. The weapons upgrades seems to be the only really substantial one in this matchup to me. I'm not sure if there's any key critical points otherwise, but all the units do so much damage with such big hits, the weapons upgrades just don't make too much. Now, well, you see that Gomez is trying to push up, still a good amount of his army down on the low ground, but Snails with a very substantial Dragoon force easily repelling this back. I see stuff like this with these zealots behind. If a little more coordination from Gomez, maybe this fight could have turned a little differently, but Snails being patient and parked on his high ground, just waiting for Gomez to get a little bit out of position. So Gomez is still looking very good as far as supply goes, and still having a bank of money to work with as well. Snails pushing forward to throw these units back, but not really committing with the whole army. Feels like maybe this would be the time to push forward and see what you can get done. You don't see Snail really having a great idea of vision outside the army, so he just sees this nexus here and sees that it's not really kicked in yet, not really doing much. But both players not being particularly active with observers or anything like that. We got the one right here to see Snail's army moving out, but like no one really getting a good beat on how many bases are fully there. No one really making any kind of paths with shuttles to accidentally stumble into a base or anything. So it's just kind of building up their army and throwing them at each other a little bit, it feels like. And you see another battle here that's neither player particularly being super aware of this little high ground. This little triangle makes all the difference in the world with these fights. That if Snail forces his way up here and half the units are down the ground, the low ground, he could definitely make a much bigger difference in the fight than he had right there. But I mean, this is the kind of stuff that when you play a map that's not a ladder, or maybe you're not as familiar with, it could definitely be a little more difficult to think about all this kind of stuff. Now, we see Gomez moving across the map with a big, strong ground army. Still, we're pretty far into the game now. We just now see these Templar from the Snails. I'm still not seeing any tech units beyond these Zealots and Dragoons. Which, I mean, we see Gomez having a big burst of weapons upgrades, and Snail having a little bit himself. But, like, you want these Reavers, you want these Templar. These are, like, the key kind of units that can really turn the fight. This DT could be a big factor, seeing I don't think Gomez has any observers in the area. There was one, but Snails did a very good job actively sniping it off. Now we see Gomez has a big collection of units, but not really pushing into the natural or anything with it, so they're slowly losing them to this Dark Templar. And I still don't see any observers in the way. You see Gomez retreating with everything, which I think at this point you do have to do, but it's one of those little oversights that you could have avoided. Now, as far as Gomez, I see little collections of units here. We got some there, we got some here, which they're just not doing a whole lot on the map, not really trying to check for expansions, not trying to contain like a block of the ring in this map for army movement. You're just kind of there being an army, but not really getting anything done. You see Gomez fully retreating into his base for no particular reason, but now he is expanding to another base, a little sneaky, going off over here, which if you're going to take a fourth base here, in my mind, I would take one closer to your main production over here, maybe this bottom one down in this area, but going over here just hoping it doesn't get scouted. And we see Snail doing something very similar, kind of taking another 4 base himself, taking the whole top edge here, which I think makes more sense for him than Gomez's choice, but Gomez still just having a very big amount of army, still not fully aware of the advantage he actually has. He could be forcing the issue so much more than they are right now, but with not really using the observers to get vision, still don't see as a lot of high Templars or anything, just a big brick of regular units, and not being super aware of wanting to control these high ground areas. Like, this whole group of Dragoons right here is at much worse efficiency until they move 3 steps to get in this area here. If Gomez should move his entire army right to this area here and just start pushing in, it would probably work so much better. It would clump up everything, so the storm from his High Templar would hit way stronger. But you see, this Gomez not being super good about his army positioning, not getting a whole lot done. Even like you see down in the middle of the map and a little bit below, it looks like there's some clusters of units not getting used. They see this big supply advantage from Gomez, but if you're not using all the army, the supply advantage doesn't mean nearly as much. Although Gomez is finally breaking through this natural of Snails and moving forward, I think this might be too much for Snails to realistically hold. I think this is a kind of game where it's decided that neither player really was having a good idea what the opponent was doing, not using their observers to really scout the situation. Both players found out about expansions after they were up. Like, they weren't seeing it happening and preparing for what's going to go on, so I don't know. We'll have to see what these players want to do with the game too. But I think Gomez, if he keeps pushing forward and gets into this production of Snails, I don't see much he can do about it. Although maybe this might just be a little unfamiliar with the map, like seeing stuff like being moved here. Maybe he clicked here instead of into the base a little bit further. Sometimes that little dark mini map that you have to click your army into for attack moves or just rally points can definitely get you in trouble occasionally. So we see Gomez still barreling into this main, keep forcing the issue out. Snail's going mass Zealot, because that is a good thing to do in this kind of situation. Zealots can't miss up the high ground like Dragoons can, and they do take less damage from the Dragoons, but it's still just too much to work through, even with Gomez kind of dancing his units in a little bit of a worse way. Just when you have to clump up all your units to get up this one ramp, Psionic Storm does so much damage that you can't ignore it, you can't really deal with it. And it just looks like here, Gomez drilling into this main, trying to get the job done. I really wish I saw more Reaver tech from either player. Maybe a little more shuttle dropping, harassing, any kind of stuff like that. it felt like a big game of both players being defensive and moving into their macro game, and then just throwing armies at each other, not really trying to control the map so actively or thinking about the unique properties of this kind of map compared to other ones. Like, this isn't a fighting spirit with all these little high ground pods. It's something you do have to keep in mind of how this map works, and maybe change your build to match up to it a little bit better. I think at this point there isn't really much that Snail could do to get out of this game, but we'll have to see. He's got a little bit of a force that snuck around with some Dark Templars, so if Gomez doesn't have any observers immediately available, he's going to lose this base, but it's still just not going to make enough of a difference. Although he does look like he does have an observer to spot these Dark Templar in the first place. So Gomez losing the mineral third, but still has the other third that seems very unscouted, while Gomez pushing in and destroys the entire production from Snails. Now you see him trying to rebuild, but if you, like, this is a matchup of some snowball kind of thing. If you have to rebuild all your production, or if you're behind on gateways, you're just going to get in such a bad spot so quickly. I see Gomez pushing towards this base over here with the next set of production, and Snail is just not going to be able to produce the units he needs. All Gomez needs to do is take this big existing army up in this corner and move it towards that next base. Now, we do see little things that you should be considering in most maps when you're ahead. Like, you see Gomez, he's ahead, he's still expanding. He took this base right here. This is another new expansion. You see from him, he's not adding on to his production any further or getting any more upgrades, but the fact that he's building the economy up and moving forward, I do just wish that we saw, like, Snail's vision is completely dark, but Go Meta has nothing about this corner. And, like, something you just gotta remember, it's Protoss. We get observers. They're so cheap, and they're invisible, and they see everything. Like, you just gotta throw them on the board sometimes and see what you can find. You take an observer, just click it around the corners of the map occasionally, you never know what you're going to find. I think this game could be very different if Go Meta scouted that third from Snails any bit earlier. But this late into the cast, like, he did a good job securing the lead he had and moving forward with it, but I think that's something you should remember, especially if you feel like you're in a good spot. Scout for more bases. You never know. So, we're going to go into Game 2, Go Metas vs. Snail. We're going to see what these guys are playing on. This is that two-player map that we saw before. Again, I believe it's called Cross Game. I think it's Cross Game. You guys can check and let me know. I'm pretty sure. We got Snails. He's in the green Protoss up in the top right. We got Go Metas in the blue Protoss in the bottom left. Now, when you got a two-player map in PvP compared to a four-player map, stuff like Nexus first, a lot less viable. Like, you don't have that extra chance that they're not going to scout you in time. You know your opponent, you know where they are, so thinking about doing proxy gateways or some kind of aggressive opening is definitely a lot more reasonable. But also, this map in general, I think, has some pretty decent areas over here, like considering the green man. I think in this area here you have some good ridges to work with to fly shuttles in, so this definitely seems like the kind of map where you might want to go the standard 2-gate into reverb before expansion. Not trying to be super greedy. I think you just got to be a little safer on two-player maps like this. I see both players. Nothing unusual yet. You should see an early gateway and then a gas from both players. If they deviate from that, then we might have some kind of deviation. We'll see if Go Metas wants to try that gateway first again, or the Nexus first again. But it does not look like it. They're both building a gateway, and looks like they're doing some much more standard play for the matchup. Now, as far as standard players for matchup, it is Dragoons, and usually in the mid game, like the early and mid game, it's Reavers. So we're talking some amount of gateways, some amount of robotics, and expanding tends to be difficult if you're following that kind of play. If you don't try to sneak one out with a little bit of a greedy kind of play like a Nexus first, committing into a Nexus can be very difficult to hold. If your opponent builds 3 more Dragoons than you and attacks when they have 8 and you have 5, well, that Nexus is going to sit there, and then you're going to lose all your Dragoons and not be able to produce them back because you just can't afford that many gateways early. So if you have to work with only a couple, you can't afford to lose units like that. So if you only got like a limited production, you can't afford to fall behind. Because if one opponent wants to make that move first, it can definitely be a difficult position. You see Go Metas and Snail both getting their cybernetics core. But you see Go Metas has a Zealot on the way, pretty close to done. It looks like he cut a little bit of pro production to get this done compared to Snail and what he's got going on. And you see Snail has that Zealot moving across the map. The early game build from Snail is seeming a little more optimized. But this is the kind of thing that just does not do a lot of damage. It can do some harassment to the probe line, but when it's just a Zealots, they're slow. They're easy to kind of move around and see what's going on. We see Go Meta's up in this top corner. Curious to see what he's doing with that probe. Might just be hiding it to make sure it doesn't get sniped off later. Go Meta's looks like they are getting a Dragoon range and a Dragoon, while Snail is not really getting anything at the moment. I am confused as to what Snail is doing. Maybe a little too invested in his early game micro here, falling very behind on his macro. So we'll have to see what that leads to as far as his build goes, because you see Snail's now building that first Dragoon, now building his Dragoon range, but Gomez already has a Dragoon up on them, and still tons of money from Snail. Looks like he's gonna try to do this early Nexus play, but especially if you're doing what happened there where you get a little bit distracted and fall behind your macro, you're just not going to have the units to defend it if Go Meta sees this and knows how to react. So we're going to see, does Go Meta actually scout this in time to make a play into it? Because if you get the expansion up and it's settled and you got the army to defend it, you're in a great spot. If they scout it and know how to punish it, you lose almost immediately. So this is a very tense part of the game for PvP. That the first player to take that expansion, next couple minutes, and seeing what are they going to do to actually hold it. You see both players building up a lot of gas. Looks like they do want to be thinking about going into that robotics a little bit earlier, because it costs a lot of gas to get robotics. Then it costs a lot to get observers or get reavers, anything like that. Like if you're doing any kind of lower gas stuff, you probably could delay the gas a little bit or pull guys out to get your gateways up a little bit earlier, something like that. We see Snail getting that robotics facility, 2-gate robotics, very standard kind of stuff, but usually not with the Nexus like this. And we see Go Meta's building extra gateways up in this area that was a little tricky. I saw that probe go up there earlier, and he's building some extra gateways. Looks like Go Meta is just going to 4 gateway pressure, pretending he's playing Starcraft 2. Which this build, it's a little all in, but it's very, very strong. And the big thing that can shut it down is Dark Templar. So if you don't go, this is what I was talking about early on with the little RPS of, I think you're not going to go Dark Templar, so I'm going to skip detection. And if you're right, you're in a great spot. Now you see Go Meta's going to have this giant swell of production. He's not securing his next yet. He's going for the kill. Now Snail just got the next online, so it hasn't paid for itself yet. It's not really online yet. And you can even see exactly what I'm talking about. 4 Dragoons versus 6 right here. And Gomez going to have so much extra production moving forward. We're going to have to keep an eye on the production tab for Snails and see if he does get that robotic support base, start getting a Reaver to defend, something you really want to consider when you do these early expansions PvP. Is even if you don't get the shuttle, just get the Reaver for artillery, because it does so much damage per hit. You need something to help you hold this. You can't just play the normal game and hope the expansion is going to live. And you can see it with how this game's going already. Snail losing Dragoons. And the moment you lose all your Dragoon count, like, how is Snail's going to produce enough to get out of the situation? You need to use a different thing to keep this game going. Even if he completely sacks this natural, he only has 3 gateways of production, 2 Go Meta's 4, and he's behind the count already. And he's going to have to push up a ramp. Like, this game seems very out of control, and Snail sees exactly the same thing, calling it out and going for that GG. Realizing he got in a bad spot. Exactly what some people talk about, that it's just very difficult to expand this matchup. So We got another 2-0 going through, and that seems pretty reasonable. Like, PvP, you gotta... There's some matchups you want to be greedy in and see how it goes. Not this one. Not really this one. So, we're going to go to our next set of matches. OG versus JR Kirby. I played JR Kirby in the preseason, and they seemed like a pretty strong player, so I'm excited to see how this one goes. In the top left, we have Beretta, which I guess is OG. We got Beretta in the tan, beige, whatever, Protoss. We got JR Kirby in the bottom left with the orange Zerg. We got another Protoss Berserk coming. This might be a nice example of some better ideas of what to do than what we saw in that Tier 3 game earlier. We got a little bit of friendly banter from both players. Always exciting to see that. People, like, it's still for fun. We're not playing for money. You don't have to be so super serious. So you should be talking to your opponents, making friends. Like, that's the whole point of this kind of stuff, that you want to be investing into the community a little bit and enjoying what you're doing. So we're still waiting for that early deviation from either player. We're not going to see anything super early. You see Beretta going for that pylon in the spot to build a wall with. Putting it a little further forward, actually planning to use the pylon as part of the wall rather than putting it like a little bit back in this area, so you can use a forge, a gateway, and some units and keep the pylon back. If you're not super familiar with walling, doing pylons like this is okay. It does give you a little more surface area, but there tends to be some kind of gap, usually like right here, so you'll have to plug it with extra units anyway. And this is also a nice weak building for a Hydra all-in to punish this, because if you only have the one pylon anyway, it's going to depower the buildings and make things more difficult. But it's also just an easy way to get a nice big hole to run through. And you do see that forge first from Beretta, which, again, like, this is the stable thing you want to do in this matchup. You want to be defensive. You want to just make sure, I don't want to die in 5 minutes or less. Let's do something normal and move forward. That's the kind of thing you could be doing. It's just going for this forge expansion. And we see Beretta trying to scout out, see what is JR Kirby up to. And we see an expansion. We don't see a pool. If Beretta scouts this and realizes how late this pool is, be as greedy as you possibly can. Skip the cannons. You don't need any of this kind of stuff. So we're going to have to see, how does Beretta react here? He's got plenty of money for the Nexus. Does he autopilot into some cannons, or no, he does go for that Nexus right off the bat? Now you can see this is kind of what I'm talking about. The drone went right through this gap right here, and like putting a gateway in here, not gonna, like, in some maps this kind of situation might not be great. I think this actually might be a decent wall to have the gateway here, and then you just have the one gap. I'm not 100% sure. Brutal walling doesn't make sense. We should all play Starcraft 2 instead. Now we see JR Kirby getting a third hatchery in the main, and then he's got a Overlord up here, not moving any more drones out. Getting 3 hatcheries so quickly, I'm going to keep an eye on when he gets that Hydra den. Might be a 3-hatch Hydra kind of all in. So we'll have to see. I don't really know what signals that yet, but it's something I'm going to keep an eye out for and see what's going on. As far as Beretta, you got that gateway on the way. He's building one cannon behind, which, you know, you're in a good spot because you got that early Nexus up anyway. You didn't have to get cannons delayed or anything. So getting one cannon to help secure the wall a little bit, make sure you don't die to a couple Zerglings, that makes sense. We're going to see what these players want to move forward into from the mid-game. Got this one Zergling, just making sure we stop that probe scout, which, if Beretta is on top of it, that will never die, but moving into that corner, we'll have that seems like that probe might not be long for this world. But you could definitely outrun that forever until Zergling speed finishes. Now you see we got JR Kirby not carrying the probe still in there, going right into that lair. Needs a value in getting the build on time rather than hiding information and being sneaky. If you were concerned about something like this, you could start the lair at the natural instead of the main, and then see if you can stop the probe from getting to the natural. But since the probe does see this, it does kind of show some indication, and we do see that Hydraless den being built as well, which the probe also still sees. You can be building things on the other side and hiding information, but J.R. Kirby willing to play the straight up game, just saying this is what I got and I don't really care. Now we see Beretta moving into normal kind of game from this forward expansion, getting their economy up, getting double gases. The big thing I'm looking for here, did they want to go Stargate? And as I was about to say, they started the Stargate, making me look like a terrible caster that doesn't know what I'm talking about. Like, you guys started seconds after I say it, not seconds before. You guys are making me embarrassed. We're going into a nice Stargate play. Makes so much sense. Again, you get easy scouting, although this probe still has seen everything. He sees no Spire. He sees this Hydra Den. And if he can get that eyes on the natural and really see what's going on, but you see that Beretta has a very good idea of what's going on here. And we got Hydra movement from J.R. Kirby. We got the lair, but we don't see any lair required tech yet. It does seem like it just might be a 3-hatch Hydra kind of early game push, which, depending on how much he commits, is either just aggressive or cheese. And we see one of these situations I was talking about from Beretta. Like, you see this wall, there's a lot of buildings, there's definitely a lot of things that are annoying. If you kill this pylon, though, everything gets turned off. And then there's a window right here to run through. So if you have Hydras and you're pushing up in this area, if you can get in this squad right here or like down here and kill this pylon off, like J.R. Kirby can definitely get a lot of things done. We see Beretta moving towards the base with his Corsair to scout what's going on. He sees a couple Hydralisks. He goes over. He sees another hatchery and Evo chamber. Still not seeing any lair required tech, but I don't know how much he actually got vision of this kind of stuff. He has to see it and react to it appropriately, realizing that there is no big threat of Mutalisks or anything like that. And you can see from the Protoss player, he's still building Corsairs. It's the kind of stuff you could start skimping your Corsairs on, unless you want to go into a play that you want to do like Corsair DT. Let's see if he's reacting appropriately to what he sees. We got the Lurker aspect on the way from the Zerg player. So that would make sense of why we had that early lair, that you want to rush into something like this. It is a little bit unusual for Protoss in these kind of situations to get a robotics and observers so quickly. But I think if you're scouting around with the Corsairs and really seeing what's going on, you see a lair but you don't see Spire, you should prioritize those observers a little bit faster. But even if you don't get observers, you see Psionic Storms on the way. That's a good way to stop this kind of stuff, like Lurkers. Because even if you don't see them, they're burrowed. You see where the burrows come from. You can still hit them with Storm. You don't need to see them for them to take the damage. And we got double Evo chambers. Not looking like some kind of early all-in if he's going for double upgrades, but still not really making a whole lot of use of his tech in my mind. We got to see what he wants to do moving forward. You see like Beretta move down here with his Zealots, expecting to get something done, but he killed one unit, and there's not anything to really reinforce it. So you think you're in Beretta's spot here. It's 2 base versus 2 base, and that's a situation Protoss should be favored in, that they are even on bases, not falling behind to the Zerg swarm kind of mentality. But you have to prepare that if they're not taking the big economy, they must be doing some kind of tech. So you need to get the thing you need to stop that. We see the robotics on the way now, but it feels definitely later than it could have been. Now we got faster Overlord movement from J.R. Kirby. We got a bunch of other upgrades for the core units. We got Zergling speed and missile upgrade, armor upgrade. We got plenty of stuff, so he's going into this big swell of normal low tier units with big upgrades. And I think I could be in a good spot, but just the fact that he still hasn't taken that 3rd base, I'm curious if he's going to have an army that can actually contest with these Protoss kind of army. Especially like Protoss going to get their upgrades on the way. We see the +1 already done for the Zealots. We see Psionic Storm and Templars building energy already ready. Like, this is definitely going to be a very difficult situation. J.R. Kirby getting that Queen's Nest now looks like they want to go straight into a hive pretty soon. Curious what they'll want to do with that. Maybe just Ultralisks. But still on 2 base, like this might be more of a Defiler, we're going to push your natural under Dark Swarm kind of thing. Like, you're going to need a lot of time, and Like, Beretta should be able to get decent vision of whatever he wants to see here. He has units that can fly. They might die to Hydralisk, but you'll get a gauge of what the opponent's building. He's being very patient with how he wants to explore this. You see Jared Kirby moving out to the middle of the map slowly. This is what I'm talking about with the map, that he burrowed lurkers on the high ground, moved his army down. He's doing it in steps. He's not just running all the way across the map, making use of the map features. Now, Jared Kirby moving up to this area while he's sending some of the units here seems a little mismanaged. I think, like, the lurkers are doing some pretty decent damage, but there's a bunch of units here, and I'm not really sure why. I think maybe to kill those couple zealots from earlier, but that was minutes ago, and they've been moved away a long time ago. See Beretta moving into that third base. Jared Kirby still on 2 base. So Beretta really needs to scout what is Jared Kirby up to and prepare for this attack. Seems like he's not fully respecting how committed Jared Kirby is to this kind of attack. We're going to see what things are getting settled under. Now we got I saw Dark Templar in production for Beretta, forcing the Overlord detection, which you don't see any Overlords with this army. And then as far as what Zerg has over here, we got the Hive mutating just now, so still going to be a while away from anything like Defiler Tech or anything. So Jared Kirby's still on just a normal low tier kind of army. Although he does have lurkers, which helps a ton with this kind of situation. But we got observers for Beretta already online, so I just think I think the players just need to gauge more of what their opponent wants to do. Like, Beretta is definitely in a spot where he doesn't have to go crazy, and Jared Kirby may be preparing for some kind of early attack that he never executed on, or thinking Beretta was going to attack him early and that never happened as well. It's hard to tell with some of these kind of things. I see a giant swarm of stuff from Jared Kirby moving up. There's a big supply difference, but that doesn't matter in this game so much if you're coming from watching Starcraft 2 or anything. That you need to remember that even though Zerg has less supply, you get so many more units for your supply. But not controlling the high ground pod, having too many units so far back, we'll see if Jared Kirby actually commits all the units to this fight, or they can stay here doing nothing. And we see there's a couple lurkers over here doing pretty good work on this kind of army. I think Jared Kirby is going to clean this up. Both players losing a good amount of stuff, but I would say Jared Kirby got a little bit better at the exchange. Now, it's as what is the second wave of stuff going to do? See Jared Kirby trying to move forward, taking a very big Psy Storm though, losing a lot of health on his Hydra army that was pushing forward. Because it's a good situation to retreat with what you have and wait for a next group, like a couple control groups of stuff where you keep trying to push forward. It looks like Jared Kirby's immediate production will be better because it's Zerg. Like, you have Larva, you just need a couple hatcheries to get it done. You see Jared Kirby just establishing that third base, but has no mining coming from it. Still forcing his way into these attacks, but just not getting a lot of value from them. Although he's got these lurkers up here that are doing good damage, not getting a lot of kills individually, but definitely doing some good damage and slowing Beretta from pushing straight across. I gotta say, like, the way this game's been going, Beretta's spot looks a lot better than me. You got still even bases. We do see Jared Kirby got the 4th of the mineral, but still not saturated or getting anything done with it yet. And Beretta's got 3 bases, and they're all pretty saturated. Now, this will be fun for Jared Kirby. We see right here we got transport for Overlords, and he's got Overlords set up right here. You got an observer spotting that out, so maybe he can see and smell out what's happening a little bit, get some Dragoons ready right here. But it looks like a lurker drop in the main could do some big damage. Not going to depower buildings. We see the giant brick line of pylons, but even cutting down some of these probes will be a big help. Let's see what each player sees as far as vision goes. We see Beretta, not like he just got an idea here about this base. He doesn't know about the mineral one yet, but he's trying to kind of just control his army a bit right now. Still trying to push up this high ground, but Hydras and Lurkers on the high ground. Like, this is what I keep talking about every time we're going to watch the games on this map, that this high ground little triangle pod is so important that you need to control whatever range units you have. Like, if you don't want to push up into that, that's when you start moving through the middle, moving around with your units, using drop technology like shuttles or overlords. But you can't just keep trying to march up here. It makes it very difficult to actually break this situation. It looks like Beretta is starting to get up there and control it, but J.R. Kirby wasn't reinforcing to maintain it. I think that's one of the big things with this kind of map, is that you just need to pick your spot, try to control it, and slowly work your way forward. But you got to keep rallying and reinforcing that spot, if anything. It looks like both players have been around the same supply for quite a while at this point. Like, no one getting much further above 100 supply. They both got some decent economy, but they keep trading units back at each other. So it's really about what are these players going to do moving into the later parts of the game now with their armies. You see Jared Kirby's got the Zergling attack upgrade from Hive on the way. Not sure if he has any Defilers on the map. I haven't seen any yet, but Defilers and Dark Swarm, especially since you can see the Protoss army is starting to get more Dragoon heavy, or anything like cannons. Like, this would be that would be a good way to break this third base if you saw it was there. I'm not sure if Jared Kirby actually knows about it. It looks like he scoured that a while ago, so maybe has an idea. But Beretta pushing into this third base from Jared Kirby. Looks like he's going to clear that out again and just keep control of the mid game he set up for himself. I think Jared Kirby just took too long to take that third base if he wasn't going to commit to an early attack. Maybe be a little indecisive. Looked like he was setting up for that early Hydra attack, but just never pulled the trigger on it. And you can see now the supplies used to be like 30 apart. Now they're closer to 80. Looks like Bretta's finally starting to claw ahead with his unit upgrades. He's got a +2 attack. And he's starting to build up his army of core units that are so good against Zerg low-tier units. This is Hydra, Ling kind of stuff. Just when you got Zealots and Dragoons and High Templar to supplement it, it's just does so much damage and stuff. You need a little bit of tech from Zerg to actually break this kind of stuff, or a big swell of units, but Jared Kirby being behind on the common just isn't going to get that done. And you see Beretta just keep marching across the map, forcing that's like, oh no, I got the advantage, this is my time to shine. And Jared Kirby realizing he's not going to get too much further here, and fantastic that he's just calling it, but he played a good game, just a little indecisive to get anything done. So we got Beretta winning that first game 1. Looks like Protoss is the best race, right guys? Like every game we've watched today, Protoss? Like, if you're playing anything else, what are you doing? You're clearly just making big mistakes. Yeah, so we're going into OG versus JR Kirby 2. And we're going to see not cross game? Hold on. We're gonna just make sure what I got is correct. Alright? What are we playing? CPL cast, tier 2. Yeah, circuit breakers? Why are the circuit breakers for game 2? I don't know. We're watching it anyway. We're watching circuit breakers. I don't think this is the map we were supposed to play. I'm pretty sure this was something else. But who knows? Who cares? We're getting bonus games. They played the wrong maps. Fantastic. Alright, so we got JR Kirby in the top right with the I don't know what map to play Zerg. And we got Beretta in the blue Protoss and the I also don't know what map we're playing Protoss. That's okay. I think I think this we're gonna call it an audible that they're playing a little bit different maps. I think this actually favors the Zerg a little bit. Playing this matchup, Protoss versus Zerg, is annoying as hell for the Protoss. So you got these double bridges that are hard to cross. There's so many bases that are easy to take for the Zerg player, and that first third base that's easy for the Protoss to take is a mineral. So it's not like you get a giant advantage. I definitely felt a lot of struggles in the mid game playing against Zerg on this map. So this might be a small advantage to J.R. Kirby that, we can see. We got, well, while we're early in the game, he said loser pick after game 1. I didn't double check the rules. Hey, that's what we did last season, so it's a very understandable mistake. And that's exactly my point, that I think this map is a little more favored for Zerg, that Zerg was like, if I'm picking a map, I'm choosing Circuit Breaker. Now, just imagine if people voted and we had Andromeda instead. We got Beretta getting that early Forge. And that seems very reasonable again. Like, you just want to get your economy going, especially on this kind of map. So many bases, such a big macro map. You need to get the economy going, not try for anything crazy. Especially if you're not super familiar with it, there is areas of unbuildable terrain. So you could definitely, going for cheese can be a little more difficult if you don't scout the map out fully and really understand where cheese is possible. So, when we get that probe going into the Zerg base, still seeing no pool. So, you gotta see this Beretta respond appropriately and just go Nexus, no cannons, no nothing. Looks like he is gearing up to do that exact kind of thing. We see Beretta getting an assimilator. Going for that gas deal versus Zerg. I actually don't know if this is actually worth doing or not. It seems like it could be okay, but like, you see the Zerg getting that spawning pool. So do you know Zerglings are gonna be on the way? This seems like it's not. I think you might have been able to steal it and still get the Nexus. I think delaying the Nexus for this gas deal is suspect. To put it as gently as I can. I don't know. Like, this is something you want to do against Terran because it delays the factory production, which delays that first Vulture, the first Siege Tank, that first upgrade, all that kind of stuff. But against Zerg, and you see this pull in the way, they're going to get Zerglings anyway. I just don't think this does anything substantial other than delay your own expansion. We see Beretta with that proper kind of wall up, Gateway, Forge, Pylon. It gives you as few holes as possible given this configuration. There's going to be one at the top and one right here, but it's the best you're going to get for a vertical wall. Now we got to see, what does Beretta one go into? We're waiting for that first Stargate, or are we going to be doing something a little more gateway focused, lots of Citadels, something like that? Hey, you see exactly what I'm talking about. We got these links killing this gas. Now see, this is the kind of situation. You see the links killing the gas now. Oh, I have to lay the gas. No, you didn't. It's half the natural. Like, that's why I don't think gas steal in this matchup really makes a whole lot of sense. Unless, like, you're just saying, I need to not play against a really early Zergling speed or something. Like, it seems like a very weird choice. One of those things that you play in a game, and maybe not something you've practiced super much, but you see it, it's like, oh, I have the chance, I can do this. No, you should stay on course, do your normal game plan. Don't start overreacting to weird things and get yourself in spots you're not used to getting into. J.R. Kirby getting that early Hydra Den again. We're going to see if the plan's a little more straightforward for what they want to do in this mid game. Still expecting with these kind of 3-hatch and a Hydra. I don't see the lair so fast this time. So maybe this time J.R. Kirby will be going for that actual Hydra push across these double bridges. Which, even if you don't commit to it as an all-in, getting a good amount of Hydras, putting them in this spot, making it hard for pros to move out, covers your expansions in the mid-game pretty safely. It just becomes a balance of making too many units versus how much damage you need to get done. You see Beretta getting that early Stargate. We'll be able to scout out and see exactly what the Zerg player is going on. Still no lair for J.R. Kirby, so it does seem like he is going to be going for this kind of big Zerg Hydraless push. We got Protoss starting to walk away, and now I love this. I saw that from J.R. Kirby. We got the probe moving in. He's got the Zerglings blocking ramp, but he moved the Hydras back, making sure to not reveal that there's Hydras up in the main, not really reveal the counter what he's got. He did spawn the one which killed the probe at the very end, but that was so smart to move this kind of thing back if you're playing at something that has some kind of, oh, I need you to not see this. Although, like, this is the kind of thing, though, if you're playing from the Protoss side, scout the third bases. You saw your opponent had a very delayed third last time. You saw he went to a Hydra, so even if you don't get that Corsair in the area to really see what's going on early, what you could be doing is scouting for the third base and make that assumption whether it happens or not, or keep units like outside here, see if they move out with some Hydralisks, something like that, because all you gotta do really as Protoss, if they do this heavy Hydra push, is just add on enough cannons to not die. If it's 2 base versus 2 base, they're so behind on economy, committed to this kind of thing, all you do is survive. You can eat the loss of extra photon cannons, you can do all this kind of stuff. And you can see exactly what I'm talking about, that the Zerg still on 2 bases, still hasn't started a lair. Very committed to this attack, so it's either going to have to kill, or Protoss is just going to be in a very fantastic spot as long as they have any idea. Now, you see a bunch of Hydras moving across the map with that Corsair, but we got these couple Zealots over here, good for a counterattack, but didn't slam down any extra cannons immediately to make sure he can survive his attack. They're starting now, but might be a little too late. We gotta see if Jared Kirby pulls the trigger as soon as possible to punish this. And Jared Kirby moving in. There's plenty of things here, but if he killed that one pylon, it's gonna depower all the stuff at the front, not the cannons. That's why he's still going for the cannons. So it makes a lot of sense to me. All the cannons are down. There's some building, but he'll be able to kill those beforehand. There's no Zealots to defend anything in the base. Keep storming these forward, like you got these Hydras at the back, not being there, not getting things done. Just getting distracted from killing the things that will actually stop the push. A little bit of, like, when you get in a situation, it's just very easy to lose your head a little bit, but Jared Kirby with a good, strong build choice, I just think Beretta could have scouted or reacted a little better, but hey, if you do this kind of push and it goes through and does a good job, that's all you needed to do. And you see Beretta willing to forfeit that main base in that natural, which honestly, this kind of situation is not as bad as it seems. You think, oh, I gotta lose my natural, I'm going down to 1 base again? Well, the Zerg's only on 2 and behind on tech. Still no lair, still nothing in production, just a little bit of economy. And if Zerg's only 1 base ahead of the Protoss, very winnable situation. But meanwhile, the Protoss in a very big tech advantage because, like I said, Zerg still hasn't even gotten a lair yet. But we got Dark Templar on the way. We got Stargate already on the board. We got Templar techs, we can go into Storm. Like, the moment these Dark Templars start attacking these Hydras, this pushes over, this Nexus doesn't die, and Zerg's still not in the greatest spot. Now we gotta see, does Jared Kirby pull his stuff back? Oh, he does have an Overlord in time to see these Dark Templars. That's fantastic to actually reinforce that and make sure you see that. So it looks like Jared Kirby will be able to kill this Nexus and put himself into a good position going into the mid game. We see Brett still going for more Dark Templar, but once there's that one Overlord in production, if you don't have Corsairs to stop it, like, you're not going to be able to just march Dark Templar into a pile of Hydralisks. Like, it's just not going to do enough damage. Now we do see this one Dark Templar trying to sneak in, but this Overlord in a great spot to defend this kind of stuff. You're going to have to Mission Impossible his way into this base. It looks like he's a little bit trapped. Unfortunate, but a nice little try from Beretta to get something back in this game. I see in this situation, like, when you have to start doing stuff like this, cannons to defend to make sure they don't push up, this is the kind of spot, if you're J.R. Kirby, realize the big advantage you have, control down here, and make sure they don't take the expansion, take a third, move into the mid-game with a more secure economy. Don't say, I'm going to win just off Hydras, because you saw Dark Templar, you know they have a Templar Archives. So if they get Storm and try to push out of this army, that's their way back in this game. But if you take that third base and control them from taking theirs, and you go 3 base versus 1, that puts you in a much better spot. You already done a ton of damage, and you don't need to go crazy. This is something that is very easy to do, where you're just thinking, oh, I have the advantage, I'm going to go for the kill. Don't go for the kill. The kill sucks. Like, go for the economy. The economy will definitely get you the kill later. So just, you gotta think next step, always next step. And you can see, right, we got a lair finally on the way, but this is still not very next step. Not more hatcheries for macro, not a third base for extra economy. J.R. Kirby still staying very all in, which I agree this was an all in kind of build, but he did enough damage. He can transition out of this kind of build. Still being very careful to keep that Overlord with the Hydras, make sure the Dark Templars don't get to sneak by and do anything crazy, which that's all you need to do. Even like this right here, we got this little situation here. This Dark Templar gonna feel super sad. Not gonna do a single thing. And we see more Dark Templars trying to march in. Beretta trying to steal something back, but J.R. Kirby very prepared. You see Beretta moving towards that third base, trying to see something else. Doesn't see a base in production or anything, so maybe feeling a little more comfortable about the spot, but when you're in this kind of situation, being able to break out of this ramp is going to be very difficult. I would say the thing you would want to be doing as pros here, go for Reavers, which you see the Reaver in production and shuttle movement. Reavers could kill a giant grip of these Hydras in one hit. Meanwhile, we got J.R. Kirby going for drop and for Lurker, looking like they want to keep pushing into this thing. Instead of taking more economy, no, take the economy. But as player styles, you want to keep attacking and being aggressive, making that highlight reel where it's like, oh my god, Lurker killed 20 things in one shot, like YouTube, like clickbait stuff. You can do whatever you want to do. That's the beauty of this game. But this is definitely a spot J.R. Kirby should have expanded long ago. And you can see this is the kind of thing I'm talking about, where storms do good damage. Maybe you're not paying full attention with your army. You're giving Protoss a chance to get back in this game. Now we see that Protoss is moving down. We got this shuttle right here, one Reaver inside, looking like he's going to try to sneak out. I thought he might use it to break out of his base, but looks like he's going to use it to go counter harass. Although given how much counter harassment he's tried to do with Dark Templars already, I wouldn't be surprised if J.R. Kirby is keeping some units back at home. It looks like they're not, but this is a big swell of units. This is going to be very hard to hold without some serious splash damage, so you might need that Reaver at home to survive this attack. I'll have to see. He needs to start positioning stuff a little better. If he clogs the ramp with Zealots, perhaps, and then maybe he can storm his way out of trouble. He's got a good amount of storms charged up right now, but he needs something planned to really get anything done. You can see this Reaver finally get into the main. It's killing a couple drones, but that's not what you need to be doing right now. You need to be getting out of your own main. And that Reaver went down almost immediately, which just, for that kind of investment and the reveal that you went Reaver and Shuttle, just it did not do its job. So now Beretta's going to have to try to fight his way out of this situation, but it seems like it's going to be very difficult given there's no observers and there is a couple lurkers on the field. There is Psionic Storm that can do something against these lurkers, but this is definitely a hill to climb. You see Beretta right up here, still keeping eyes on that third, seeing that Jericho is still on 2 base, so definitely a good idea to not want to quit yet. You still have a chance to get out of this, just got to be thinking how you're going to get out of the situation you're in now. Looks like Jericho Kirby saying big contained. Lots of lurkers in production, going to be very difficult to get out of this spot. We don't see any observers on the way yet. We do see another Reaver building Scarab, so it looks like he will have another attempt to get out of the situation, but Beretta just not realizing this is definitely going to be too difficult to get out of, and I think I agree with that. It would have been very hard to get out of the situation, but I just wish J.R. Kirby played that a little different, a little less all in. He had such a good spot, and just like, why you don't have to keep it at that kind of spot. Keep moving forward with your game plan and try something else. Alright, so we got that first game 3 of today. Going into game 3 between Beretta and J.R. Kirby. And it looks like Fighting Spirit. I think, I don't know. I think it's Fighting Spirit. These guys playing whatever maps they want to play. But if it is Fighting Spirit, that makes sense for if they're playing this like a loser picks out of the pool. Protoss likes Fighting Spirit, I think. You get an easy third, you get an easy way to attack in, and usually Zerg wants to take that second main, and you have so much space in the middle to work with. I think that makes a lot of sense to go for this kind of map instead. So we're going to see what are these players going for as far as openings. It looks like Beretta has been doing 4 disband every game, and J.R. Kirby going for that early hatchery every game, so we'll see if either player wants to deviate this time. Beretta asking, how was he ahead last game? You weren't. I don't think you were. But that's a fair question. And a nice little fun thing you can do in a game. Ask a question that takes some explanation. Throw them off their build a little bit. If they want to be friendly and talk back to you. But you see a Beretta setting up for this vertical wall again, just like the one he had in Circuit Breaker, where you put the pile on the bottom, and then there's the forge and the gateway goes on top of it, and then there's just two spots you get through, right here, and then one at the very, very top. Now, looking from the Zerg player, what are they doing? I see a lot of minerals. I see 12 supply. It looks like we're going straight for another hatchery first. Although Beretta is going to scout this very quickly. So we'll see if there's any kind of adaptation of what to do. When you scout things this quickly, there's little things you can do. I don't know if they're really worth doing, but you could try to like cannon behind the mineral line here to stop this expansion, because you know the Zerglings aren't on the way or anything, and force them into a less economy play, do something a little bit weird. But I think Beretta's going to do the thing he's been doing the whole time and just take that really fast Nexus, because there's no way Jared Kirby can stop it. I see Jared Kirby's Overlord walking right into the main. Always a pain in the butt to deal with, because if you have that Overlord in the main, until you get a cannon in your main, or you get a Corsair to chase it out, or unless you want to build your Dragoon, they get free scouting information of everything, and you're not building important tech at the front of your base. You're always going to build that important tech behind. Now, see, I don't agree with this from Beretta, getting this cannon before like the gateway. He saw the timing on the spawning pool. He doesn't need to get the cannon. He can keep developing his tech a little bit better and getting that first zealot out. This cannon definitely could have been delayed. Now, we see Jared Kirby. We got 3 hatcheries. We got a gas moving up. We got not a lair until we get some gas. Although, you see this probe doing non-substantial, like that's more damage than a probe should ever do in a game. But that would also be hilarious if that ever actually happened. But I don't think it's going to happen this time. We'll have to see. We're going to keep an eye on that. Beretta getting his economy online just like normal. Seems like we're playing a couple games in a row of the very similar builds. Something I definitely recommend for players trying to learn is take your build, regardless of what it is, and just keep playing that build. Don't like try to learn 5 builds at once. They're all crazy different. Learn one build and learn all the reactions and deviations that you need to learn. Jared Kirby going for a very small amount of Zerglings, which might be a problem trying to actually kill this probe, just like the one game where the probe was around forever and saw everything you need to see. Which you see, just like in game 1, we got that lair coming down from Kirby early. Not in game 2, the probe died early, so the scouting stopped, and Jared Kirby didn't get the lair, went straight into the Hydra all in. I wonder if that is planned from Jared Kirby to not commit to that Hydra all in unless he can kill the probe. Which, that's a good adaptation if that's the way you're trying to think about it. Other than that, we see these players going into, looks like a pretty normal mid-game. Beretta should be starting his Stargate soon. Or he didn't. Yeah, he has a Cybernetic score. He should be starting Stargate soon. And we see from Jared Kirby, you got the Hydra Den on production. Still have the lair, but I think we're going to see a very similar thing to what we saw in game 1. We got that second gas on the way, so I think Beretta doing a very similar thing as well, getting Stargate, but then going into that early Templar tech, getting Zealot speed, all that kind of stuff. I would love to see a deviation into something different. If you know your opponent keeps going Hydraless, maybe to try and Corsair Reaver would be a very fun way to approach the mid game instead. But I think both players just committing to the game they want to commit to. And we see we got +1 weapons from the Protoss. We got Citadel on the way from the Protoss. Very normal looking stuff, and I appreciate seeing this kind of thing. And we see Zealot's starting to pile up, going to be pushing into a big thing. We see Jared Kirby, unlike game 1, going into that lurker a lot faster this time, making use of the lair tech. So, curious to see what he's planning to do with that, if it's a siege into the thing or a contain so you can take some expansions. Given the other games, I'm going to guess a siege and not an expansion. Seems like Jared Kirby says, I don't want to play a game more than 10 minutes long against the Protoss, which I completely get it. Protoss are nonsense. You don't want to play against them forever. Obviously, a little bit more bolstering defense from Beretta. We got a couple gateways on the way, and we see Corsair being produced, and then more on top of it. So we're gonna see Beretta scouting into the main, seeing the nose spire, seeing all that stuff again. I think this time I'd love to see Beretta stop making Corsairs as fast as possible and go into a big ground army. Once he realized that he is not Mutos, he doesn't need this kind of stuff, or making more use of the Corsairs, controlling the overlords on the middle of the map, like this one right here. Like if he can get these out of there, stop the free scouting information, make DTs a more viable threat, something like that. We see this Jared Kirby having a drone in the bottom right. I'm optimistic for a third base. That'd be fantastic. We'll have to see if he actually gets there, but just threw it out there at some point. And we see Beretta scouting around, seeing what he needs to see in the main base, and scouting around what other bases are we going to see. Did the Zerg player take another main for extra bases, or did he take this third, or is he still on 2 base just like the other games? Which I think, as far as that goes, did Beretta see this left base? It does not look like it. I think that's the path he went when he went to the main. It didn't actually see this hatchery in production. As far as Beretta, he's getting that Psionic Storm. He's about to finish that +1 upgrade, and he looks like he has a pretty decent ground army, but they're moving across the map to the right. I'm not 100% sure why. I don't know. Beretta looking for something. Not sure what he's looking for though. But it looks like he's building that normal kind of mid-game army. Got a couple Templars starting to stock up energy for the storm that'll be finished in a little while. We got Zealot legs on the way as well, and we just finished +1. And that earlier robotics looks like he is realizing how J.R. Kirby plays and thinking about getting observers earlier than normal, or going into Reavers earlier than normal. So we'll have to see where this game goes from here. But I'm just excited that J.R. Kirby took that third base, and these players look like they're going to be playing a more committed, longer game than what we've seen so far. And J.R. Kirby doing little tiny smart stuff with these links, scouting around the map, seeing what's going on, make sure there's no proxies or no sneaky bases from Beretta. This is the kind of stuff that you do it 90 games and it doesn't see anything, but then it'll scout a dumb Nexus with no defense, and it'll win you the game that you would have lost if you never scouted it. Little tiny stuff like this is a big key to how this game can be played, and you want to be scouting for expansion. Anytime you feel like you're in a good spot and you want to move forward in a good way, definitely something you want to consider. We got a decent amount of hiders here. Hard to see how many with so many overlords in the area. But I do understand why J.R. Kirby's not moving the overlords on the map for vision, but hard to get a grip on what kind of army he actually has. But he's setting up a very strong economy at that third base, and it looks like Bretta's just starting to try to set up his own third. I see J.R. Kirby having a ton of money banked up. Looks like he's going to be able to do something pretty big moving into this mid game for any kind of aggressive attack if he wants to do something like that. Really getting the Dragoon range, something you always want to remember to get in the mid game against Zerg, because it helps you break Sunkens. It'll help you against like killing overlords, or help you against Mutalisks if you need a little bit of help with that. But just getting that extra Dragoon range to help break static defense. Like, you don't want to just keep marching Zealots, especially if the Zerg has any idea how to SimCity their base. You're never going to break Sunkens with Zealots. So I'd always like seeing when they want to get that extra range. And we see from J.R. Kirby going into big higher tools upgrades, including Burrow this time. Definitely a little cheekier, a little more interesting, but very good defensive. It's a cheap upgrade, but it's nice. It's defensive. You can, if they try to drop you and harass you, you burrow the drones and stop it. Or you can set up little traps with like Hydras, set them easy flanks, anything like that. Burrow definitely very underutilized unless your name's Effort. So looking to see where these players want to go into this mid game. We see 3 base for 3 base, which still generally favors Protoss. You don't definitely want to be in a better spot with a number of bases and kind of economy for Zerg. When you're in an even situation, you should feel pressured to get something done damage wise. So we'll have to see what these players want to do. Jared Kirby is moving into getting that 4th, and he's getting it here instead of at one of the mains. Because one of the things, if you get one of the mains or naturals, that helps you secure the 5th base as well. This is probably a little less likely to get scouted. But you see Beretta moving up into this upper left, but walking into a couple lurkers. This could be very, very problematic. Well, he has the observer to go through, and there's not a lot for Jared Kirby to actually defend this. Looks like he might have to lose this base and sacrifice it. See if he wants to commit and try to kill it. But the Templar being up near the front, right next to the Zerglings. These Templars could be so dead, but the Zerglings wanted to fight Zealots instead. And you see Jared Kirby controlling that ramp outwards, kind of close his army in from Beretta, but if you look at the supply, it looks like he can afford to lose army. He killed a base, they've done their job. And they're still going to do pretty good damage on the way out. We got storms clogging up this ramp, destroying some Hydralisks on the way in. So we'll have to see what actually gets happening with this. Beretta keeps pushing into this 3rd base. He kept all the units alive pretty much and has a substantial supply lead and now has an economy lead as well. So we're going to see if he wants to keep scouting around, or does Jared Kirby get some kind of big engage to get something done with this. He does get a decent amount of little Zerglings to fight these Dragoons. When you have just Dragoons, you don't have the Zealots to help them out, they do tend to not do a tremendous amount of damage. So when you get those little opportunities, it's worth losing like 150 minerals of Zerglings to get some damage on those. But he's kind of conga lining units into this Protoss army, which, given that there is upgrades for these Protoss units, no armor versus an attack upgrade for the Protoss, he's going to mow through Zerglings. So you can't be doing this with Zerglings. You got to use Hydralisks in this situation. Or be more patient. Back up your rally point a little bit. Group up and get some stuff. And then move out in a bigger push, not a little cog line, a couple units at a time. And we see Beretta does have an observer to fight these lurkers, and he's starting to have a very substantial army. He has looks like 1 storm left, but Jared Kirby realizing this game is going to get out of control, so just tapping out, realizing this is not going to be the way he wants to go, and that's understandable with this kind of game. I think Jared Kirby had a good position he could have done more with, but maybe just being a little too passive from Jared Kirby without being so economy focused. If he was really aggressive and being greedy, then he could afford to like lose that 3rd base and get some kind of advantage out of it. But he's playing like these early builds aren't so economy focused. He's not really getting much done. I'm curious if there's something he'd be doing instead that would be a little more fitting. Alright, so we're going into, it looks like our last series of the night between Stoic and Barisu. Barisu? Yeah, we'll go with Barisu. It's going to be round 1 between that. We finally got a Terran player in here. We can get hype for Terran. In the top left, we have just Barisu, which I will just call you Barisu, and the white Terran. And in the top right, we have the blue Protoss, Hidden Stoic. And every series had plenty of Protoss showing you guys that if you picked another race, you're wrong. But we'll have to see how this game goes. As far as this map is, I am not 100% sure how it works for this matchup. I like 2-gate Dragoon early in this matchup because if you can control that ramp and Terran can't climb out, it's very difficult. Especially if they're trying to use siege tanks or something to get out. With their slow fire rate, if they miss half their shots, that could be very dangerous for them to get out of. In the same way, if Terran gets control of one of these upper ground pods, it's very hard for Protoss to push out. So I think if either player gets through that early game without losing control of their natural and they get into the mid game properly, I think that this will probably be a more macro kind of centered game. But both players have plenty of opportunity to be aggressive between 2-gate Dragoon or like a 2-factory play or some kind of like an FD push where you got some Marines and some tanks, something like that. Something to get control of your opponent's natural expansion. So let's see what these players want to do. Protoss, nothing crazy yet, just that early gateway, which you're always going to see every matchup, every time, unless it's in the middle of the map somewhere. The big thing we're going to see from Terran is how are they handling their gas? They're taking the gas now. But it's when they get enough to build that factory, that first 100 gas, do they start pulling guys from gas or keep guys in the gas? And that gives you that indication. Do they want to expand early, or do they want to build more factories and get really aggressive, really aggro about it? So we'll have to see what these players want to do. I'm not 100% sure between gas and barracks timing. I just know when they take them out of it. Now, as far as Protoss getting that one gate in the Cybernetics core, skipping that early Zealot, it seems like, well, let's see if they want to build it now. If you're doing an early play, getting that one Zealot does make a big difference, in my opinion, because it helps you soak up some extra damage. It keeps your Dragoons alive a little bit longer. And if they do get that early siege mode, that the Zealot can absorb the hits or the spider mines or something. I think getting that one Zealot, if you're planning to be aggressive, makes so much sense. But we see just going for that early 2 gate, that 10-15, very aggro kind of build where you're going to build a couple Dragoons, you're going to get early range, and you're going to march across the map. Exactly what I'm talking about with this 2 gate Goon being so strong on a map like this. Now, as far as Terran goes, we see a factory in production, and we still see 2 guys in gas. Usually you pull down to 1, I believe, for expansion, or keep all of them in the gas for 2 factory kind of play. So this seems a little middle of the road. I'm curious if this signals something in particular that I'm just not super familiar with. But I love seeing this kind of stuff. You see with the amount of gas being stockpiled, I think this will be a 2 factory, and this will enable siege tanks and some vultures get into that early kind of mix. But we do see we got Dragoon Age on the brain, we got double Dragoon production, and Stoic just marching across the map. Is all you need to do. If you can control right here, especially before siege tank gets made, if you can control this area right here, it is so hard for Terran to get out. Like, these Marines will not be able to get out against like anything blocking right in this area. And we see that second factory in production for Barisu. And unfortunately, that machine shop is right close enough to that ramp to be harassed by these Dragoons while they control the ramp. This might be a very substantial problem moving in, because they might be able to kill that before any upgrade happens, and that would stop siege tank production. And we see right here, he lost the probe at the ramp, but still controlling the ramp with Dragoons. It has more reinforcements on the way. Once he has a couple Dragoons up here, these Marines will not be able to get up here, and he's going to lose that machine shop. Now, the number you're looking for as far as Dragoons, you want 4. 4 Dragoons versus these siege tanks, because if there's no repair and you can dive in on that area, 4 Dragoons will kill a siege tank in 2 hits. That's the big thing you want for it. You see, he's moving a factory away, cutting his production. I think you already have the one machine shop building at the other one. You should just keep that one there and start building vultures. If you're buying time while the vultures harass it, you can repair it with an SCV or 2. You're not gonna lose the factory, but you need units right now. You need a way to break out of this situation. But until then, you're gonna be in a very difficult spot. You see the Dragoons diving into this tank. Nope, being a little more careful, not diving too far forward. But he needs that tank. He needs that tank to do the damage, and he needs to be able to keep it alive. He doesn't have any SCVs repairing. He's gonna lose it. Oh, that's so bad. You don't want to lose that siege tank so early, Dragoons like this. I think in this spot right here, given the lifted, like, he went for double machine shop. I don't think you needed to do that here. I think getting a couple vultures and just waiting for the other one, and then you can start researching spider mines, is all you really needed. This feels a little extra greedy for units, and I don't think Barisu can get out of this situation. 2 gate Goons showing why Protoss is the best race possible. There's bias all day, I don't care. Terrans can deserve it all. Like, you guys get these nonsense units, but just did not make the decisions you need to get out of that early game. And when you play a map with that inverted ramp, that can just be so difficult. So the game kind of going the way I thought it was going to go. One player making that early push and the other one not being able to defend it. And we're going to see what happens in game 2 instead. It looks like game 2 is on Neo Sylphid. Okay, we're just kind of mixing it up with plenty of maps that I think there's plenty of people just have not seen the rules of this season, which I agree, it is different than last season, so I get it. In the top middle, 12 o'clock, we got just Barisu in the teal Terran. And in the bottom right, we got the blue Protoss for Stoic. We're going to see if Barisu can do something different in this game to make this one go a little bit better. But we have a very similar kind of map problem in this one that we did in the last one. It's 3 players instead of 4, so you're going to find your opponent quickly. And I believe it's flat ground, no ramps. I mean, there's a ramp, but it's like, it's not at the natural. It's a little above the natural, like right in this area. So this is another situation where a 2-factory push or a 2 Dragoon push can be aggressive and get some damage done. So we'll see if either player wants to play that style again, or were they just making the choice based on the other map before. Definitely both are very reasonable options to have a build for the map, or have a build for, like, I want to learn this build and screw it, I'll do it on every map. Just Barisu playing Brood War since just a kid, and so is Stoic. And I think a lot of us have been too. I think there's a big nostalgia factor to this game. Back in the day, you played it maybe school with your friends, playing Fastest or Big Game Hunters, or just use map setting stuff. I think a lot of people here have been playing these kind of games for so long, even if it's not hyper competitive 1v1. So always good to see people just willing to talk and have a good time. We see Barisu having a different build already, though. Has that barracks in production. No gas yet, so maybe trying for a gasless expand. And he's going to have a couple Marines to get a bunker up to protect the natural, something like that. We'll have to see what he wants to do. Protoss build looks super normal as it can possibly be. So we'll have to see where they go from here. Protoss isn't going to have any deviations for a little while. It'll be if he wants to get like 2 gates, if he wants to go into a robotics or an early expansion, something like that. So it's going to be pretty dependent on how things go. We do see Barisu getting that gas, but later than last time. So maybe a 1-factory kind of play or something. I'm not 100% sure on Terran builds. Like, I played a little bit of Zerg. I mainly play Protoss. Terran is disgusting, so I take my best guess. It's the best I can do. So I try to get co-commentators with me that play Terran. They know what Terran does. For as far as I go, they just make nonsense units and win with their overpowering numbers. Like 70 from 12 range. That's ridiculous. We see the Protoss 1 gate getting early range and going into just pylons, basic kind of stuff. I think he's setting up for this one gate kind of push that might have like a robotics, maybe some kind of reaver, some kind of thing, or just going for a really early expansion. We see Barisu building that bunker at the main. He's building multiple barracks though. I was like, oh, he's building a bunker because it's going to expand behind it, but 3 barracks play. And a single guy in the gas getting... I'm like waiting for maybe an academy to get stim. Is this going to be Bio versus Protoss? Which people like... So we can go into a little deviation on talking about this. People say like, no, you gotta go mech versus Protoss because it's so easy to kill bio. Well, if your opponent doesn't know you're going bio, they're not gonna have the thing to stop your bio. Like, for example, the thing to stop bio is Reavers. Reavers destroy all the ground units in 1 hit all the time. But if your opponent doesn't go Reavers, they're not going to know. And the Terran just got a good scout to the main and saw no robotics on the way. So we got this academy on the way. We got 3 base M&M, and we can get some medics. If he gets stim or he gets range or something, like, Dragoons don't kill Marines quickly. You need Zealots. But you're not going to build Zealots normally. The big thing that you got to keep in mind is Stoic did see that he didn't have the expansion. He saw the bunker with units in it, but didn't see the CC being built with a probe that got to about here. And now we see his pressuring with these Dragoons into this bunker, which is the normal thing you kind of do, but you still don't see any kind of expansion. You don't see you don't see SCVs, you don't see anything. This should be suspicious. So I'm curious to see how is the Protoss player going to react to this. There's so much defense being built into this bunker, but there's nothing behind it, and this is something the Protoss can see. We see a bunch of M&Ms still being made and researching that stim pack, looking for this. Going to be totally dope one base push with mostly Marines and a couple medics. Versus if it's mostly just Dragoon, Dragoon is not going to be able to defend this. They have enough range to kite Marines like this, but when you have stim and you have the extra move speed, it becomes very difficult. And the rate you actually kill the Marines, but killing a couple Marines now is huge. Losing those 4 Marines for no reason and seeing no expansion, red flags all over the place for Stoic right now. He should be able to see something weird's happening and get ready for it. And now he sees he killed 4 Marines and just got shot by more Marines. This should be a signal that this is not normal. There's going to be some kind of weird build going on. I need to get ready. Stoic not doing any big reactions, but building a forge. If he gets a couple cans up, that might be okay, but forge versus M&M really isn't that great either. Unless you build like a whole bunch of cans, but there's not even a pile on that, the natural. That forge isn't doing anything. And he's just going straight into weapons upgrades, not respecting what kind of build this is, I think. Although he seems to be doing plenty fine. Like I said, Dragoon's outranging Marines in this kind of situation. You can't keep stemming the chase, because then Dragoons will kill you quickly. And you can see, even now, Dragoon's outnumbering Marines. Barisa doing a weird build, but I think when Stoic did something aggressive, caught this build out of whack, and Barisa losing a couple Marines early, just not much you can do about it. This standard builds are standard for a reason. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about, Tempest. I see that in there, that the bunker is too far. I should know from lack of SCV mining. Yeah, you should be able to see. And he would have been able to see the bottom of the thing and see SCVs mining over here. He should have seen something when he was harassed in that bunker. But you see, Stoic, no overreactions, nothing weird. He got a couple gateways. He's building his +1. He's going into robotics now. But if you look at Barisu, he's getting all these upgrades, still not trying to expand. If Stoic was scouting for that expansion, he would see this is still one base. But I think you might still realize that just from seeing how much M&M he's already killed, this might be committed. Or even if it goes into a later game, like what is going to happen? There's not much you can really do about it. So I think this might be a Hail Mary one last attack for Barisu, and we'll see how well it does. This kind of thing could definitely be dangerous, but he's got to get something done before Protoss gets tech online. Reavers destroy this kind of thing. Psionic Storm destroys this kind of thing. If it's just Dragoon Zealot, he's okay. Even like Zealot with speed destroys this thing. He's got to hit before any tech from Protoss really kicks in. Fortunately for him, Protoss is delaying a lot of this tech. No Reavers, no Citadel, no nothing like that to really get him in the spot where he's going to defend this. And I think Stoic going for a kind of attack you might do blindly, normally in this situation, where you're just sending out your Dragoon, you're sending out your stuff. Let's go poke it as natural. And when he sees nothing there, he's going to have to realize what's happening and how he wants to adjust. In this situation, just don't die is all you need to do. If you can survive till you get your tech pieces up, M&M falls off the map. Barisa would have to go into drops to really get any value out of this stuff, but as far as ground armor versus ground armor, it just doesn't enough, which is why it's always been mech versus Protoss forever. It just doesn't do the damage you need to do. You see a lot of units for Barisu, but superior numbers from this Protoss player cleaning this up again. And I think Barisu realizing this situation not great. I do love the play to try to do something a little cheeky to get out of this game, but oof. Definitely not the build I would choose. I think if you want to do some kind of marine based play, maybe a little proxy reactor or a bunker rush on the natural or something. But something like this, although Stoic just walking into the base, taking so much extra damage, maybe overestimating the advantage he has here, just willing to eat a bunch of marine shots, kind of throwing away army unnecessarily. Like, there's 6 barracks of production of marines. Like, you can't just throw away dragoons. Now, little things like this, you see Stoic here, he's taking a 3rd base. I think you don't need to. If you see the Protoss on 1 base and committed to M&M, go for the thing that stops the win condition, which is I'm going to keep attacking you until it works. at third mineral base, like you have plenty of economy on 2. You don't need third. But having splash damage technology to fight this marine force, that will win you the game for sure. So I think this is generally a good idea that he's like, I'm ahead, I'm not going to rush in for a killing blow, I'm going to expand instead. But maybe thinking the reaction a little bit better. It's like, usually it's just, I'm going to take another base, and then I'm going to take my advantage and move into the mid game. Well, tech advantage is an advantage too. You don't have to always do economy. And if your opponent is going to get completely destroyed by one tech, get that tech. And you see Barisu still committed, getting armor for the Marines, which doesn't do a tremendous amount here, I don't believe. Because you take damage from the Stimac, go down to 30, and then like, you might survive one more hit from Dragoons. I'm not 100% sure. I think this might be the kind of thing where, even if you add unupgraded siege tanks, just generic siege tanks, maybe. It's hard to tell. Like, you see how much gas Barisu has, but no way to spend it. And you see him now finally committing into getting that second base, but I don't think there's a whole lot this is going to do at this point. Stoic should be able to harass this as much as he pleases. Now we see Stoic getting ground armor, which is a fantastic upgrade versus heavy marine play. It adds so much extra value because they hit frequently but for low damage. And then we see Citadel on the way for the Protoss player, so moving into that Templar tech. Once storms are online, this is going to do nothing. And he has that Observer in the Terran base, seeing that's still all Marine medic, like no deviations, not going for drops or anything. I wish he was scouting around for something like a starport or something, so that way he can be 100% sure it is just ground game. But you can see he moved the Observer from here to here just to see the move out, and feels no reason to be pressured. He's committed to this high ground right here, not trying to move out to the Terran base. He's completely fine where he is. And finally, we're getting that robotic support bay for Reavers. About to show Barisu exactly why you don't go Marines in this matchup, but we'll have to see how that actually goes. It's very easy to lose shuttles quickly to stim Marines, so if anyone plays like UMS games, like you might realize how easy it is to lose shuttles in this game. So we'll have to see what these players do. You see Protoss starting to venture out a little bit, not overextending, not going crazy, and moving another Observer into the Terran main, looking for production, seeing what's going on. And we do see, like, we got this one missile turret here. We finally got a factory in production, so I'm not sure if Stoic actually sees that. I think it's right in his vision. Yeah, he sees that factory in production. So I think Stoic should realize how good of a spot he's actually in, because if you have this kind of lead and they're still on Marine Medic, that has a timer to be effective. But you look at this kind of army, like this, like that's like what, like 2.5 control groups of Marine Medic versus 2.5 control groups of Zealot Dragoon. I think he wins that regardless, but he's building the perfect kind of tech to fight this kind of army, and has the economy advantage. Stoic definitely sitting in a very good spot to get out of this game unscathed. But I love the fact that he's going for little simple stuff, just seeing if there's any trick that's going to be thrown his way that he's not ready for. Other than that, just sitting back, getting his economy up, and being willing to move into the next game. He's upgrading Scarab damage for the Reavers. That does do nothing right now. Like, I think 110 damage from a Scarab will kill all the, like, yeah, I don't think upgrading it does anymore. Oh, we'll have to see. He's getting Observer sight range, which seems okay. I think if you were going to get an upgrade right now, it's shuttle speed is the upgrade you'd want to get, so you don't get caught out by these Marine Medic if they stem and rush forward. I think that's the thing you'd want to get if you're going to get any single upgrade in this situation, but I think he's going to be in a great spot just getting these Reavers in general. Now we see we do got this shuttle, and it does have double Reaver. It just got scanned. Literally the moment it starts moving out, it got scanned. And you can see he's moving some Marines out. He's going to try to intercept it, which, oh, this could be dangerous. This could be real dangerous. He's not overextending. Let's see. Stoic moving over a ridge, so he's in a good spot. And plenty of stuff. He's getting these Reavers unloaded, and look how little they can do against this kind of army. You can't even approach these Reavers with Marines on the ground. Like, you need something to go through it. And I saw him building the starport earlier, but I haven't seen anything built out of it yet. You got tanks in the way in siege mode also, but he's already invested so many in Marine upgrades and things. Like, he's just so far behind on the mid game he really wants to have. You see just Protoss barreling in. They don't care anymore. Like, they realize the spot they're in. So let's just start trading units and lean on my economy advantage. Both players floating plenty of money, but like Protoss's spot right here is just so much better. You see this one Reaver. It's not going to do a whole lot, but it is in base working on some stuff. And all the SCVs pulled pretty much into the natural. It looks like they just want to block that area so the Dragoons can't roll up and kill these tanks. But you see Barisu just basically forfeiting the natural, not be able to do a whole lot here. And Stoic just keeps leaning into the attack, realizing like there's not much that's going to happen at this point. Looks like the Reaver in the main was cleaned up against Stoic, but such a strong army lead here, I don't think Maurice is going to be able to do a whole lot about it. But it was definitely a very interesting opening for Maurice to check out, doing this unorthodox style. Something that might have been a little more popular in the years past, but it's too hard to do Marine Medic, I think. It's a very pretty committed kind of cheese build, but you got to be able to do it in a way that gets you into that mid game you need. I think this might maybe need a map with a ramp or something. I'm not 100% sure what makes Deep 6 work. But you see both players bowing out, saying GG and having a good time. We got Stoic winning both of those games. At least a very interesting game from Barisu, just difficult. Very difficult. Although I do think that is the last of these games I have available to cast, because I added in some fake ones. Yay, this was... well, we do got a third game in here. Well, let's see what the third game is. Does look like we got a bonus game, but I don't know why, because I thought the Protoss won both. But screw it, we got a bonus game. We're doing bonus game. So we got Hidden Stoic in the slightly less blue Protoss. What are these colors? Come on, Blizzard. Barisu in vibrant blue and Stoic in muted blue. Oh god, this is gonna be a nightmare. We'll see how this game goes. I don't know if this was, again, they just committed to playing all three for fun or anything like that. But we'll see what these players are doing. If they do anything, if it's a game for fun, I'm hoping for some extra wacky stuff. Well, as far as Protoss goes, nothing weird yet. We got the pilot in the main, not in the natural, nothing crazy. And we got supply depot. Like, nothing weird's gonna happen yet. We got a little bit of time for any kind of big deviation from either player, so we'll find out soon. We'll see if Barisu wants to commit to that Marine Medic style. That'd be hilarious. I would hate to be his coach if he was like, I just love Marine Medic and TVP. Because I imagine his coach would not be thrilled with that decision. We got Barisu getting that barracks again without getting that gas right away, or is he about to start it now? What is Barisu going for a scout, not getting that early gas? Now this cross game also a map just like Gladiator with these inverted downward ramps, so, and it's a 2-player map, so stuff like 2-gate Goon, 2 factory plays, stuff that's very aggressive and in your face. If you can control your opponent's natural, you make their life a nightmare getting out of their base. So I think this might play out in a very similar way to that game on Gladiator, except with only 2 spawns and the distance walking being a little shorter. I mean, I think it's a little longer than close spawns, but the cross is a little shorter. Like, all you gotta do is be aggressive, get control, and then move out forward from there. So we'll see what these players are willing to do. I'm going to see Barisu just starting to mine gas. So it looks like he will be going to that early factor like normal, rather than this marine play that he did last game. And we see Hidden Stoic getting that second gateway. Makes sense to go for this 2-gate play, just like I was saying. You want to control this ramp. Looks like it's going to be a pretty similar repeat to game 1. We got a bunker on the way for just Barisu. I don't like this placement. I don't think this... Get the bunker after you start the expansion or something, because just getting a bunker just to get the bunker seems weird. It's a weird way to stop a big push from controlling your natural. I don't particularly like it. I think you can commit your build in a way that would get the expansion up and give you a better mid-game plan. If you look at the timer right now, there's a single Dragoon just now finished and moving across the map. You could have started the CC first and gotten the bunker after and still been completely fine. So this is just overly cautious. It's like when you watch a Protoss versus Zerg and a Protoss builds too many cannons for no reason. You gotta remember that your opponent's units do take time to build and do take time to walk across the map. So you don't just need to build this defense so aggressively and so quickly. They see here, like, the bunker is plenty in time and this command center is in production pretty far, but if you reordered it, I think the same situation would have happened, exactly the same. Oh, we see from the Terran player, he is going into 2 factories with the expansion this time though, and his factories not being built in a way that are crazy easy harassable, so he won't have to make that lifting the factory play again. Well, we'll have to see how this goes. Still building another marine. I think the bunker only has 3, so getting that 4th seems okay. Curious he wants to keep building after that, though, to make for a strong mid-game push with a couple vultures or a tank or something like that. It does seem like he is stopping his marine production. Just wanted to get that 4th one for the bunker. We see siege mode on the way, not spider mines or vulture speed or anything like that. He's going for raw power, strong units. You see these Dragoons pushing into this base. They did kill the bunker. There wasn't SCVs pulled early to make sure the bunker stayed alive. A little mistake from Barisu, because you do have to keep in mind that Dragoons do a lot of damage, and they do full damage to buildings. So you want to have those SCVs ready. At least wait until this tank comes out. The moment the tank's out, the Dragoons have to back off. The tank does too much damage to ignore. But if you can get that bunker down and now there's no marine support for it, now all you gotta do is get 2 lobs of shots from 4 Dragoons and that tank goes down, and you see Barisu, this game's just getting very out of hand. When you play against these kind of aggressive Protoss openings, all you gotta do is lose 1 or 2 too many units early and it just snowballs too out of control until you have the tech you need to really defend it, like a siege mode, like some spider mines, something like that. But Hidden Stoic with another well-executed 2-gate pressure early, and in taking the lead he was given, which makes total sense. When you play these inverted ramps, that's exactly what you should be aiming for. So, I think out of the games I was given, this was the last one I got. We got a couple sets of games, and including a bonus game that I don't think was necessary, but it was fun regardless. So, thank you for tuning in and watching. I had a good time casting it, and I'm going to be casting more in the future. I'm